Berry Gordy built the most successful black-owned music empire in American history, and he did it with one rule that nobody talked about out loud. You could rise inside the machine. You could become a star inside the machine. But the moment you tried to walk away from it, the machine did not forget you. These 10 artists found that out. Some were fired. Some were pushed out. Some left on their own terms and still paid a price they never saw coming. And one of them, number one on this list, did something inside that building that changed the entire music industry. And Berry Gordy never got the credit for teaching them how. Stay with us, because by the time this is over, you will never hear these songs the same way again. Number 10. The Spinners song clip, It's a Shame. The Spinners, Motown VIP, 1970. Most people don't realize that the Spinners spent nearly a decade at Motown. They arrived in 1963 when Berry Gordy bought out the small Detroit label they were signed to, Tri-Fi Records, and absorbed them into the Motown machine. And then almost nothing happened. Without chart success, Motown put them to work doing other things. Road managing for bigger acts, driving cars, working as chaperones, even handling shipping at the Hitsville warehouse. These were grown men with real voices, being used as staff. For 5 full years, they could not get a hit record out of that building. And then something remarkable happened. Stevie Wonder, who had become close friends with lead singer G.C. Cameron, wrote a song for them. Not a leftover, not a reject. He wrote, It's a Shame, specifically for Cameron. Played it for him at home on a piano one night after a club. That record went to number 4 on the R&B chart. Number 14 Pop, their first real hit in 9 years. And what did Motown do with that momentum? Almost nothing. When the Spinners went to the accounting department to pull $3,000 in unpaid road money to cover their taxes,
I want to give it to you, but I just can't be confined.
Motown claimed the money did not exist. They left. And when Aretha Franklin, an Atlantic Records artist, personally told them to sign with her label, they listened. At Atlantic, paired with Philadelphia producer Tom Bell, the Spinners recorded 27 top 100 hits. I'll Be Around.
Come on! You know you got to love.
Could it be I'm Falling in Love? Then Came You, number 1 on the pop charts. They spent 9 years being invisible at Motown. They spent the next decade being one of the defining acts in American soul music. The machine did not destroy them. It just wasted them. And they had to leave to find out what they were actually worth. But before we go any further, if nobody ever told you about this channel, think about how close you came to never finding this. Don't let that happen to somebody else, and don't let it happen to you again. Hit subscribe right now, turn on notifications, because where we're going next in this story, you cannot afford to tap out. Alright, now back to it. Number 9. Martha Reeves and the Vandellas song clip, Dancing in the Street. Martha and the Vandellas, Motown, 1964. Martha Reeves did not start at Motown as a singer. She started as a secretary. She won a talent contest at a Detroit nightclub, showed up at Hitsville the next morning, believing she had an audition, and instead ended up holding down the phones for A&R chief Mickey Stevenson. That was her first day at the company that would make her famous. It was actually a union rule violation that gave her a career. Motown was recording tracks without the lead singer present, something the musicians' union forbade. An inspector showed up unexpectedly. They needed someone on the microphone right now. The secretary grabbed it. That first vocal became their first single, and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas were born. Heatwave, Nowhere to Run, Jimmy Mack, Dancing in the Street, a record so era-defining that an entire book was written about that one song. But here is what Martha herself would eventually put in writing. In her 1994 autobiography, she stated that the Vandellas' career, as successful as it was, could have been even greater if Gordy had given their music the same obsessive personal attention he gave Diana Ross and the Supremes. She was never the priority. The label hierarchy was always clear. When Motown announced its move to Los Angeles in 1972, Martha said later she was not even properly informed. Her contract was up. She had been with the label for 10 years, and she was left her words, wondering where to go and what to do. She left, signed to MCA Records. Her debut album was critically praised. It produced no significant hits. She later suffered 2 nervous breakdowns, was institutionalized briefly. In 1989, 17 years after she left, she and other original Vandellas successfully sued Motown for back royalties they had never received. The woman who sang "Dancing in the Street" spent years unable to collect what that street had built. She eventually received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Stevie Wonder and Gordy were both there. She was 82 years old. Some things come late, some things come too late. Number 8. Eddie Kendricks. Song clip. Just My Imagination. Running Away With Me. The Temptations. Motown, 1971. The last hit Eddie Kendricks ever recorded with the Temptations is one of the most heartbreakingly beautiful songs Motown ever released. Just My Imagination, April 1971. Number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. His voice, that impossibly delicate falsetto, floating over one of the most perfect arrangements Norman Whitfield ever constructed. He was already gone by the time that record hit number 1. Kendricks had co-founded the Temptations. He was there from the beginning. His voice was on The Way You Do the Things You Do, Get Ready, and that number 1 Goodbye. And by 1971, he had had enough. Creative friction. Financial frustration. A feeling shared by David Ruffin before him that the machine valued the Temptations brand more than it valued the individual men inside it. He went solo on Motown's Tamla imprint, and for 2 full years, every single he released missed the top 40. 2 years of silence. While the Temptations kept scoring hits without him. Norman Whitfield even wrote a song called Superstar, Remember How You Got Where You Are, widely understood in the industry as a direct jab at Kendricks and Ruffin for leaving. Then came 1973, Keep On Truckin'. Disco Before Disco had a name. Number 1 R&B, Top 10 Pop, a Grammy nomination. For 1 year, Eddie Kendricks was the hottest solo name out of the entire Temptations universe. And then Motown stopped feeding the machine. The attention moved on. He left for Arista in 1978. After years of creative stagnation. By then, his upper vocal range was fading, damage from years of chain smoking that no one around him seemed to address. He reunited with the Temptations in 1982, performed alongside David Ruffin again. Looked like a second act might actually happen. In 1991, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. 1 lung was removed. He kept touring. He died in October 1992 in Birmingham, Alabama. He was 52 years old. The voice that opened Just My Imagination never had the solo career it deserved, and Motown held what remained of his best work long after he was gone. Number 7. Tammy Terrell song clip, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Motown, 1967. Tammy Terrell never left Motown. That is what makes her story different from everyone else on this list, and more devastating. Berry Gordy signed her in 1965. She had already been recording since she was a teenager. He renamed her, her birth name was Thomasina Montgomery, and built her into a label asset. As a solo artist,
I think as far back as I can remember hearing music and hearing people sing.
She had modest chart success. As a duet partner with Marvin Gaye, she was magic. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Your Precious Love. Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing. You're All I Need to Get By. The chemistry between Terrell and Gaye was so immediate, so undeniable, that they recorded most of their early hits in separate sessions. Their voices woven together in post-production, and the world never knew. In October 1967, performing on stage with Marvin Gaye at Hampden Sydney College in Virginia, Tammy Terrell collapsed in his arms. She was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. She underwent 8 separate operations over the next 2 years, and while she was fighting for her life, Motown kept releasing duet records. The label prioritized the catalog. Her solo work was sidelined. On her only solo Motown album, Irresistible, the label even cannibalized some of her own solo tracks and remixed them into duets. A Stevie Wonder pen song she had recorded in 1966 was shelved and went unreleased for decades. Tammy Terrell died on March 16, 1970. She was 24 years old. She never walked away from Motown. She never got the chance. But in the years she was there, the label consistently treated her solo identity as secondary to whatever product it could package around her voice. She deserved a solo career. She deserved full albums. She deserved time. What she got instead was a catalog that kept generating revenue after her death, and a legacy that still sits mostly in Marvin Gaye's shadow. That is not justice. That is what the machine does when it decides your value is in service of someone else's story.
So funny how you can love him today and tell him.
Number 6. The Marvelettes song clip, Please Mr. Postman. The Marvelettes, Motown, 1961. Please Mr. Postman was Motown's first #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100, the first.
How much you mean to me.
In 1961, the Marvelettes' 5 teenage girls from Inkster, Michigan, gave Berry Gordy the record that told the entire music industry that Motown was real. The Beatles covered it. The Carpenters covered it. Please Mr. Postman became one of the most recorded songs in pop music history.
'Cause all of it about me was a misery. Hello,
And the women who gave it to the world spent the rest of their careers being treated as second tier by the very label they put on the map. Motown's attention quickly moved to the Supremes. The production machine that had built the Marvelettes their early hits Holland Dozier Holland was being funneled almost entirely toward Diana Ross's group. Please Mr. Postman, Beechwood 4-5-7-8-9, Playboy, Too Many Fish in the Sea, the Marvelettes kept charting through the mid-60s. But the resources, the premium songwriters, the label obsession, it was never theirs. Lead singer Wanda Rogers, the voice most people associate with the group, watched the Supremes receive the custom infrastructure that the Marvelettes had helped build. Multiple members cycled in and out. The personal cost was severe. Gladys Horton, a founding member, suffered a stroke later in life that left her partially paralyzed and in financial difficulty. The group dissolved in 1970. The women who gave Motown its first #1 received no meaningful ongoing royalty structure from the catalog they had launched. The Beatles put Please Mr. Postman on their first American album. They knew whose song it was. The label that recorded it made sure the world forgot. Number 5. Mary Wilson song clip, Stop. In the Name of Love, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Motown, 1965. Mary Wilson spent 18 years inside the machine. 18 years, long after Diana Ross left for her solo career, long after Florence Ballard died, Mary Wilson kept the Supremes alive. New lineups, new lead singers, new eras, and she stayed. And when she finally left in 1977, Motown gave her a solo deal. One album, Red Hot, her single peaked at number 90 on the pop chart. Before her second album was even finished, the label dropped her from the roster. Midway through production, dropped. She had been a Supreme since she was 15 years old. She had stood on stage at the Ed Sullivan Show, the Hollywood Bowl, the biggest venues in the world. She had watched her childhood friend Florence Ballard get pushed out and die in poverty at 32. She had held the group together through every lineup change Gordy made. And they dropped her from a half-finished album. What followed was years of financial difficulty. In the 1980s, Wilson publicly stated she had struggled to receive royalties on the recordings she had spent her entire youth making. The legal battles between Wilson and Motown began in 1977 and dragged on for years. She did not receive royalties on the Supremes catalog. One of the most commercially exploited catalogs in Motown's entire history until sometime around 1990. 12 #1 singles. 12. And a 13-year fight just to get paid for them. She wrote Dream Girl, My Life as a Supreme, in 1986. It became a New York Times bestseller. The book was the thing that finally told her story on her own terms. Mary Wilson died on February 8, 2021. She was 76 years old. She was still talking about unreleased recordings she wanted the world to hear. Some stories do not get a clean ending. Some women build something and spend a lifetime asking for what they are owed. Number 4. Holland Dozier Holland song clip. Stop. In the Name of Love, Diana Ross and the Supremes or Reach Out, I'll Be There. The Four Tops, Motown, 1966. Before we get to the top 3, and you need to stay, because number 1 on this list involves a moment that changed the entire power structure of the music business. Here is the story of 3 men who built the Motown sound, fought Gordy in court for nearly a decade, and still never got back what they were owed. Brian Holland, Eddie Holland, Lamont Dozier. Holland Dozier Holland. From 1962 to 1967, they wrote and produced 25 #1 hits. 25. 10 of the Supremes' 12 chart toppers came from these 3 men. Baby Love, Stop in the Name of Love, You Can't Hurry Love, Reach Out, I'll Be There. How Sweet It Is, Heat Wave, Nowhere to Run. The Motown sound, in enormous part, was their creation. In 1967, they asked Gordy for a larger share of the profits and royalties they had generated. Gordy said no. They staged a work slowdown. And by early 1968, they were gone. Motown immediately sued them for breach of contract. HDH countersued. What followed was one of the longest legal battles in music industry history. It was not settled until 1977, 9 years. During those 9 years, they were legally prevented from using their own noise, names on songs they wrote. Their compositions were credited to a pseudonym, Eddie Thwain, so no one in the public knew these 3 men were still producing music. They launched their own labels, Hot Wax Records and Invictus Records. They produced genuine hits, Frida Payne's Band of Gold, Honeycomb's Want Ads, The Chairman of the Board, Real Records, real chart success. But Hot Wax folded in 1973. Invictus collapsed in 1977, the same year the lawsuit finally settled. They could not sustain it. building an independent label while simultaneously fighting the most powerful black music executive in American history. While being barred from using your own name, that is a war of attrition most people would not survive. Holland Dozier Holland were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. They received the recognition. What they never recovered was the money, the full financial weight of what they had actually built at Motown. That stayed behind, under someone else's name. Number 3. Stevie Wonder song clip, Superstition. Stevie Wonder, Motown Tamla, 1972. You think Stevie Wonder winning means he was never in danger. Keep watching. Barry Gordy. Signed Stevie Wonder at age 11. 11 years old. His royalties were placed in a trust fund that he could not access. He was paid a weekly stipend, $2.50 a week, while he was Schaus, literally the youngest artist ever to top the Billboard charts. By the time he was a teenager, Stevie Wonder had already earned Motown millions. The exact number is disputed. What is not disputed is that when he finally accessed that trust fund on his 21st birthday in May 1971, he found approximately $1 million. For a decade of #1 records, he allowed his contract to expire. He went silent. He began working independently, recording new material in a home studio using synthesizer technology that was years ahead of what Motown was doing. He made Gordy wait. Barry Gordy, who had watched Mary Wells walk on that same birthday 7 years earlier, needed Stevie Wonder to stay. CBS Records was circling. Others were calling. Wonder came back to the table with demands. Full creative control over every recording. Ownership of his own publishing through his own company, Black Bull Music. A higher royalty rate. An advance of over $900,000. Rights to his masters. Gordy signed it. Because the alternative was losing Stevie Wonder entirely. What followed between 1972 and 1976 is still considered one of the greatest sustained creative runs in the history of popular music. Music of My Mind, Talking Book, Inner Visions, Fulfillingness, First Finale, Songs in the Key of Life. 3 consecutive Grammy Awards for Album of the Year. No artist had ever done that. No artist has done it since. Stevie Wonder did not leave Motown. He forced Motown to change its terms. But here is what that story actually reveals. Every artist before him, Mary Wells, the Marvelettes, Holland Dozier Holland, Florence Ballard, they had been fighting for versions of the same things. Creative control, royalties, respect. And they lost. Stevie Wonder won because he was Motown's most valuable asset, and Gordy could not afford to say no. The machine changed its rules for one artist, because that one artist had enough leverage to make it. The others did not have that leverage, and the machine knew it. Number 2. The Funk Brothers song clip, My Girl, The Temptations, Motown, 1965. /instrumental use. You have never heard their names on a Motown record. That was by design. The Funk Brothers were the house band at Hitsville, USA. James Jamerson on bass, Benny Benjamin on drums, Earl Van Dyke on keys, Robert White, Joe Messina, Eddie Willis on guitar. These were some of the most gifted session musicians alive. Many of them trained jazz players who had been lured to Motown with promises of jazz recording sessions that never came. Barry Gordy paid them $5 to $10 per session. The going rate for a union session musician was $50. He kept them cheap by dangling future jazz projects that never materialized. They played on virtually every Motown hit of the 1960s. every Supreme's record, every Temptations record, every Marvin Gaye, Four Tops, Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas hit. James Jamerson's bass lines alone, the bass on What's Going On, Bernadette,
I'm looking for you, baby. Because see, fellas,
Ain't No Mountain High Enough, are studied in music schools today as some of the most sophisticated playing in the history of recorded music. Not one of their names appeared on a single Motown release. Gordy deliberately kept them anonymous. He did not want the public to understand that the Motown sound was as much their creation as his. Gordy also segregated them on tour buses. He did not want his polished young artists spending time with older session musicians who might tell them too much about how the money actually worked. James Jamerson, the most influential bass player in soul music history,
gotta find my baby. You say she out there now?
died in 1983, broke and largely forgotten. The Funk Brothers' story was finally told in the 2002 documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It was 30 years too late for most of them. They built the sound of a generation. Berry Gordy built an empire on top of what they built, and he made sure nobody knew their names.
Hey, I just love my baby.
Number 1. The Marvin Gaye Masters. The Price of What's Going On. Song clip, What's Going On. Marvin Gaye, Motown, 1971. This is not the same Marvin Gaye story you have already heard.
Talk to me, honey, so you can see.
This is the part that gets buried. When Marvin Gaye forced Berry Gordy to release What's Going On, in 1971, an album Gordy called Uncommercial, an album Gordy reportedly said would ruin both their careers, Marvin had to fight for it. The label resisted. The release was delayed.
People, you know, we've got to find.
Gordy believed in the system he had built, and Marvin's album was not that system. It became the most critically praised album in Motown's entire catalog. It sold. It changed what soul music was allowed to say. And then Marvin Gaye spent the rest of his Motown years entangled in something the label knew he could not escape. His marriage to Berry Gordy's own sister, Anna Gordy. The divorce was ugly. The settlement was extraordinary. Anna Gordy Gaye received significant portions of Marvin's future royalties as part of the legal agreement. There has been reporting over the years suggesting that the financial structure of that divorce
Right now, people.
The royalty arrangement may have involved Motown's own leverage in ways that protected the Gordy family's interests. Whether that is documented fact or industry legend depends on the source. What is fact is that when Marvin finally left Motown in 1981 and signed with Columbia, relocating to Europe to escape his debts, he owed money to Motown, money to the IRS, and was still subject to royalty arrangements from the divorce. Sexual Healing in 1982 gave him a Grammy, a comeback, a moment of breathing room. He was shot and killed by his father on April 1, 1984.
Bring it down a little bit, Eddie. Yeah.
The day before his 45th birthday. The masters of his Motown recordings remained with the label. His Voice the Voice, On What's Going On, Let's Get It On, Mercy Mercy Me, Trouble Man, has generated hundreds of millions of dollars since his death.
Going on, brother.
The people who benefited most from that catalog were not Marvin Gaye. Here is what this list has been building toward. Mary Wells, The Marvelettes, Martha Reeves, Eddie Kendricks, Tammy Terrell, Mary Wilson, Holland Dozier Holland, The Funk Brothers, Stevie Wonder, who fought his way to new terms, Marvin Gaye, who never escaped the terms that had been built around him. The machine was not designed to destroy people. It was designed to retain value. And when the people and the value were the same thing, the machine retained the value and released the people. That is the lesson, not about Berry Gordy as a villain, not about Motown as evil, but about what happens when you build something inside someone else's walls, on someone else's terms, with someone else holding the keys. The archive runs deep, and now you know what was buried in it.